My boyfriend texted from a trip with friends. We need to talk. I think we should see other people. I replied, clarity is good. Then I posted my new relationship status and a photo of me handing the keys to our apartment back to the landlord. His friends started frantically texting me, asking why his belongings were on the curb. My name is Elena Mercer. I'm 29 years old, and until that message lit up my phone, I believed I was in a relationship steady enough to become permanent. Not perfect, not effortless, but steady in that quiet adult way people mistake for safety. Shared rent, shared routines, grocery lists on the fridge, his shoes by the door, my coffee mug drying beside the sink because he knew I hated putting it away too soon. After 2 years with Adrian Cole, our lives no longer felt side by side. They felt merged. From the outside, we looked stable. We didn't have dramatic breakups, jealous scenes, or constant fights. We looked like a couple who had already crossed into the serious part without needing to announce it. For a long time, I thought that meant we were secure. Later, I understood the difference between comfort and commitment. Some people love the structure of a relationship more than the person inside it. They like having someone there. They like the routine, the access, the steadiness. But the second something more flattering or exciting appears, they start talking about space, like it's honesty, when really it's just selfishness dressed in softer language. The trip hadn't worried me at first. Adrian said he was going away with friends for a few days. A break, a reset. He said it casually, and I accepted it just as casually. We had never been the kind of couple who checked each other's locations or interrogated every plan. If anything, our problem was that trust had become automatic. We relied on the routine so much that we stopped checking whether the foundation underneath it was still real. The first couple of days were normal enough. A beach photo, a quick update at night, a picture of drinks lined up on some patio. Nothing romantic, nothing cold, nothing that warned me he was already stepping outside our life while I was still living inside it. Then the message came. It was late. The dishwasher was running. A standing lamp in the corner was the only light on. I was barefoot on the couch with my laptop half open beside me, doing the lazy kind of work you promise yourself you'll finish before bed. My phone buzzed on the cushion. I looked down, expecting something ordinary. Instead, I read, "We need to talk. I think we should see other people." That was it. No lead-in, no explanation, no softer sentence after it. Just two clean lines, direct enough to feel prepared. For a second, I didn't move. Not because I didn't understand it. I understood it immediately. That was the worst part. There was no confusion, only distance. It felt like the room had shifted half an inch away from me. The lamp still glowed, the dishwasher still hummed. But everything familiar suddenly looked staged. I stared at the screen, waiting for another message. Sometimes people throw the knife first and panic a second later. They rush in with context, excuses, a clumsy attempt to soften what they just did. Nothing came. I read it again, slower. "We need to talk. I think we should see other people." The wording mattered. He had not asked a question. He had not admitted confusion. He had sent a conclusion from far away, where he didn't have to watch it land. I didn't call him. I didn't ask whether there was someone else. I didn't ask if this was really about other people in general, or one woman in particular. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought briefly of his ex-girlfriend, the one he always insisted was old history. But I didn't stay there. The reason mattered less than the method. When someone chooses convenience over respect, they tell you everything with the timing. I typed one sentence. Clarity is good. Then I sent it. No paragraph, no accusation, no opening for him to revise himself after testing the damage. Just that. He didn't answer right away. Not in 30 seconds, not in 5 minutes, not in 10. That silence told me more than any explanation would have. He had expected resistance, questions, emotion, some sign that I was still standing exactly where he left me, waiting for him to decide what his sentence really meant. Instead, I had accepted it. And people rarely know what to do when the person they try to destabilize simply believes them the first time. I set my phone down and leaned back against the couch. The apartment looked exactly the same as it had an hour earlier. His jacket over the chair, his charger by the bed. The framed print we bought together still hanging slightly crooked because he kept saying he'd fix it later. Nothing had physically changed, but the meaning of everything had. That was the thought that stayed with me longer than the shock itself. If someone says they want other people, I am no longer required to keep building a life that assumes they still want me. I slept less than I should have, but more peacefully than I expected. The next morning, I woke up with the same cold clarity. No dramatic breakdown, no urge to call friends and dissect the last 6 months. The grief was there somewhere, but it was standing farther back. What came first was order. I got out of bed, tied my hair back, and walked through the apartment slowly. In daylight, it looked less sentimental, more factual. I opened the lease folder and sat at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee while I read every page carefully. Both our names were on the lease, but I handled most of the logistics: rent transfers, landlord emails, maintenance calls, all the invisible work that keeps a home functioning. That suddenly mattered. I called the landlord and explained the situation in simple terms. I did not tell him my boyfriend had ended our relationship by text from a trip. I didn't need pity, I needed process. I said the living arrangement had changed, and I wanted to discuss ending my part of the occupancy cleanly and returning my keys. He was practical, calm, and direct. He explained what needed to be done on my side, what documentation he needed, and when he could meet me. No drama, no curiosity, just structure. When the call ended, I stood in the middle of the apartment and looked around. The couch we picked together. The bookshelf I assembled myself because Adrian had promised to help and never did. The bathroom drawer where my things sat beside his razor-like proximity meant permanence. The closet with my clothes on one side and his on the other, as if equal space meant equal certainty. I didn't feel the urge to break anything. That's what people get wrong about certain endings. The deepest kind of finality is often quiet. It doesn't scream. It sorts. So I pulled out the first suitcase, then the second, then boxes. I started with what was unquestionably mine: clothes, documents, work files, chargers, books, small objects that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with the life I had built. I packed carefully, not frantically. Folded, stacked, taped, labeled. By the time sunlight had climbed across the living room floor, my side of the closet already looked thinner. Around mid-morning, I loaded the first trip into my car and drove to my sister Maya's apartment across town. She opened the door in an old sweatshirt and mismatched socks, looked at the suitcases in my hands, and stepped aside without asking a single question. That almost hurt more than sympathy would have. She helped me carry everything inside, set the boxes in the guest room, and made coffee while I stood in her kitchen trying not to think past the next hour. When she finally spoke, her voice was careful. "Do you want me to ask?" I wrapped both hands around the mug. "He texted me from the trip." Her expression changed immediately. "What did he say?" I gave a short, humorless laugh. "That he thought we should see other people." She stared at me. "From the trip?" "Yes." "And that was it?" "That was it." Maya leaned back against the counter, arms folded. "Elena." I knew what was sitting inside my name when she said it like that. Anger for me. Disbelief. Questions she was choosing not to throw at me all at once. "I'm fine," I said automatically. She shook her head. "No, you're organized." That landed because it was true. I wasn't fine. I was functioning. Held together by sequence and control. One step, then the next. Nothing more emotional than that. "Are you staying here?" she asked. "For now." "For how long?" "I don't know." She nodded once. "Okay, then for now, you stay here." I looked toward the guest room where my suitcases were lined up against the wall. Then I said, "I'm going back." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because I'm not done." And I wasn't. When I returned to the apartment, the difference was immediate. My things were already starting to disappear from the space, which made the rest of it stand out more sharply. His shoes by the entry, his gaming headset under the television, his shirt still filling his half of the closet with the confidence of someone who believed he would return to exactly the same life he left. That was the part that offended me most. Not the message, the assumption behind it. That he could introduce uncertainty into our life and still expect home to remain untouched until he got back. I kept packing. The bathroom counter, the bookshelf, the kitchen drawer with my receipts and spare keys, the framed photo from a weekend trip upstate where he had his arm around me and looked so relaxed I used to think that expression meant certainty. I turned the frame face down before placing it in a box. The closet took the longest. My hangers were mostly empty now. His half still looked complete. I slid his clothes closer together, not out of kindness, but to make the division visible. Mine, his, finished. At some point, my phone started buzzing again. Adrian. I let the first call ring out, then the second. Then a text came in. "What does clarity is good mean?" I looked at the words and felt that cold calm settle even deeper. He really didn't know, or he knew and wanted me to reopen the conversation in a way that gave him room to soften what he had said. I typed back, Exactly what it sounds like. Then I put the phone face down and went back to packing. A few minutes later, more messages came in. Elena, stop being cryptic. Are you seriously mad? We need to talk like adults. I read that last line twice. Like adults. He had sent that message from a trip, but now that consequences were beginning to take shape, suddenly he wanted to claim maturity. I didn't answer. Instead, I took out a legal pad and started writing down what still needed to be done. Utilities, internet, mail, key return, final photo, his essentials by the door, status update. The list looked absurdly calm for a day like that, but it steadied me. I didn't have to solve every feeling. I just had to complete the sequence. By late afternoon, most of my things were gone. What remained was unmistakably his. And standing in that stripped-down apartment, with my side nearly erased and his still sitting there like an assumption, I understood something with absolute certainty. This was no longer a reaction. It was a completion. The next morning, I moved with the same calm precision. Not because I felt nothing, because feeling too much would have slowed me down. And by then, I understood that hesitation was the only thing that could make the situation messy. I made one more trip to Maya's place with the last of my clothes, my laptop bag, and 2 taped boxes of books and documents. She met me at the door again, helped carry everything inside, and this time didn't ask if I was sure. She already knew. By the time I drove back to the apartment, the city was fully awake. Traffic had thickened. A delivery van was double parked across from the building. Someone was walking a dog in a tiny red sweater. Normal life kept moving around me with the kind of indifference that almost felt insulting. Upstairs, the apartment no longer looked shared. It looked interrupted. My blanket was gone from the couch. My books were gone from the shelf. My side of the bathroom was nearly empty. The closet had a visible gap now, a clean strip of space where my dresses and blouses had been. Adrian's things still filled the other half with quiet confidence, like he assumed absence and loss were not the same thing. That assumption stayed under my skin. I walked room by room and finished removing whatever was mine. Small things. The hand soap my mother had given me at Christmas, a ceramic bowl from my desk, the extra charger in the kitchen drawer, the framed photo from the weekend upstate, which I boxed without looking at for too long. The apartment felt less emotional that way, less haunted, more factual. At noon, my phone buzzed again. Adrian. I let the call ring out, then another, then a text. What are you doing? No apology, no concern, no attempt to explain. Just that. I looked at the screen for a second, then typed, "What you asked for." I sent it and locked the phone. A second later, it lit up again. That's not what I meant. I stared at the words without responding. He kept reaching for the same escape hatch, the same soft revision. What I meant. As if intention mattered more than the sentence he had actually sent. As if meaning could be corrected after impact. I placed the phone face down on the kitchen counter and went back to work. By then, my things were almost completely gone. What remained was his. The shoes near the entryway, his gym bag in the hall closet, his headphones under the television, shirts and jackets still lined up in the bedroom, toiletries in the bathroom, the watch charger in the drawer, a winter coat hanging where it no longer belonged. I started gathering his essentials. Not everything in a frenzy, not angrily, just enough to make the apartment reflect reality instead of expectation. I set his shoes by the door, folded a few changes of clothes into a box, added the gym bag, the charger, his shaving kit, a jacket, his backpack, the gaming headset, a few kitchen items he always insisted were his system. I worked neatly, like someone closing out a space, not vandalizing one. That distinction mattered to me. He was not being evicted by law. I was not pretending I could erase his name from a lease by force. I was ending my part cleanly and refusing to keep curating the emotional illusion of home while he stood outside it talking about other people. That was all. At some point, Maya called. "Do you need me there?" she asked. "No." "You sure?" "Yes." A pause, then softer. "Did he call again?" "Several times." "And?" "I'm finishing what I started." She let that sit for a moment. "You really are done." I looked around the apartment. The blank spot on the bookshelf, the cleared side of the bathroom, the kitchen counter where I had once sat across from Adrian while he asked casual questions that now sounded different in memory. "Yes," I said, "I am." After we hung up, I went to clear the last drawer of the side table near the couch. A folded receipt slipped out and landed on the rug. I bent down and picked it up. A wine bar across town. 5 months earlier. I remembered the night because I had suggested dinner and Adrian had come home distracted, saying work had drained him and he wanted to stay in. We ordered takeout instead. I had believed him without thinking twice. The receipt in my hand told a quieter story. 2 glasses of wine, a small plates order, a timestamp that made late meeting unlikely. I stood still for a second reading it. Then I laughed once under my breath, not out of amusement, but recognition. This was how betrayal often arrived. Not all at once, in fragments, a delayed detail, a small piece surfacing only after the larger structure had already cracked open. I folded the receipt and slipped it into my bag. Not because I needed evidence anymore, because I was done leaving pieces of my own story behind for him to step over. By late afternoon, the division was complete. My life had been removed from the apartment. His presence had been reduced to what he would need immediately. The rest of his belongings remained inside, but the emotional arrangement was over. The place no longer resembled a shared future. It looked like what it was now, a residence under transition, not a relationship under pause. That difference mattered. Outside, the light had started to soften toward evening. I stood by the window for a moment, phone in hand, and finally looked at the newest messages. Adrian. Elena, answer me. Adrian. Stop doing this. Adrian. I said we needed to talk. Adrian. You're taking this way too far. Adrian. Elena. That final message, just my name, sat there by itself, stripped of certainty. I could feel the shift in tone already. He was no longer speaking from distance. He was speaking from slippage. The version of events that had probably felt manageable when he first texted me was starting to move outside his control. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't him. Jason! Hey, why are some of Adrian's things downstairs? I read the message once, then again. So that was the first crack. Not a dramatic explosion, not some public confrontation, just confusion. A friend seeing physical evidence that didn't match whatever Adrian had said on that trip. A second message came in before I answered. He told us you guys were just taking space. Of course he had. Of course he had not told them. I sent my girlfriend a message saying we should see other people. He had softened it for the room he was in, smoothed the edges, preserved his image, left himself exits. I typed one sentence. He told me he wanted to see other people. Send. That was all. No speech, no embellishment, no attempt to win anyone over. The sentence could stand on its own. Within seconds, 3 dots appeared, vanished, and returned. Jason. Wait, seriously? Jason. He said that? Jason. Okay, that's not how he told it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because the truth was already moving. A minute later, Lena messaged too. Is this real? Why is his stuff outside? I typed back, because I believed him. I sent it before I could overthink how sharp it sounded. The truth was sharp. That wasn't my fault. My phone lit up again with Adrian's name. This time I answered. There was a beat of silence on the line before he spoke. What the hell are you doing? No hello, no softness, no effort to hide the panic under the irritation. I leaned against the counter and kept my voice even. You tell me. Why are Jason and Lena texting me asking why my stuff is downstairs? Because they can see it. That's not an answer. It is. His breathing shifted on the other end. I could hear background noise now. Voices, music, movement. The trip was still happening around him while everything at home had already changed shape. Elena, this is insane. No, I said. What's insane is expecting me to keep living like nothing changed after that text. That's not what I said. You said you wanted to see other people. That's not what I meant. There it was again. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them. Then what did you mean? He didn't answer immediately. I just meant I needed space. I almost laughed. You were already on a trip. That's not the same thing. No, I said quietly. It isn't. A trip is distance. What you sent was permission to yourself. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. A pause. Then sharper. You're overreacting. The word landed and passed through me without leaving a mark. Because crying would have been a reaction. Arguing would have been a reaction. Waiting for him to come back and explain what he had done would have been a reaction. What I was doing was alignment. I'm responding, I said. You put my things downstairs. I put essentials aside and ended my part cleanly. The rest is still in the apartment. I'm not pretending to control your lease rights, Adrian. I'm refusing to keep pretending this is still a home for both of us. That stopped him for a beat. I let the silence stretch. Then I added, you opened the relationship. I closed my side of it. Elena, you should have meant something else. Before he could answer, I ended the call. My hand was steady when I set the phone down. Outside, evening had deepened. I took a final look around the apartment and checked the list on the legal pad one more time. Utilities, internet, mail, key return, photo, status update. Only a few steps left now. Not many, just the visible ones. The last steps were the simplest and the most visible. I took the remaining box near the door, carried it downstairs, and set it beside the others already lined along the curb, not scattered, not chaotic, just placed there, clean and unmistakable. Anyone passing by would understand what it meant. Not storage, not a move, an exit. A neighbor from the second floor opened the building door as I stepped back onto the sidewalk. She glanced at the boxes, then at me. "Everything okay?" she asked. I gave her a small, polite smile. "Just clearing space." She nodded slowly, like she understood more than I had said, then continued past me without another question. That was the thing about certain moments. You don't need to explain them for people to recognize what they are. I went back upstairs, washed my hands in the nearly empty bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired, but steady. Not like someone abandoned, like someone who had made a decision and followed it all the way through. I dried my hands, picked up my phone, and opened my social media. Relationship status. 1 tap. Single. Then I selected the photo I had taken earlier, the one of my hand holding the apartment keys out toward the landlord in the lobby. Neutral background. No face, no emotion, just evidence. I looked at it for a moment, then posted it. No caption. No speech. Just enough truth for anyone paying attention. The response came faster than I expected. Not from Adrian. From his friends. Jason. "Hey, quick question. Why are his things outside?" Lena. "Is this real?" Chris. "Wait, did you guys break up?" I leaned against the kitchen counter and read through the messages without rushing to answer. Because this was the moment the story left his control. On that trip, wherever he was, Adrian had likely told a version that made him look reasonable. Something softer. Something temporary. Something that allowed him to explore whatever he wanted without closing the door behind him. Taking space. That was probably the phrase. But outside that bubble, reality didn't bend. Boxes on the curb don't look like space. A relationship status doesn't look like temporary. And his own sentence, once repeated, didn't sound ambiguous anymore. I typed one line. He told me he wanted to see other people. Sent. That was enough. The replies came almost immediately. Jason. "Wait, seriously?" Lena. "He said that?" Chris. "That's not what he told us." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The sentence was doing the work. My phone buzzed again. Adrian. I watched it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. "Elena, what is going on?" His voice had changed. Less confident now. Less controlled. Still sharp, but thinner. "You tell me," I said. "Why are people texting me asking if we broke up?" "Because they can see what you did." "That's not—" He stopped himself. "That's not what I meant." I closed my eyes briefly. "There it is again," I said. "What?" "What you meant. That matters." "No," I said calmly. "What you said matters." A pause. Then, "I didn't say we were over. And I didn't say I was waiting." Silence. Heavy this time. Because that was the gap he couldn't close. "I just needed space," he said. "You had space," I replied. "You were on a trip." "That's not the same thing." "No," I said quietly. "It isn't." I let the silence stretch just long enough before continuing. "You wanted the option to explore something else without losing what you already had here." "That's not true." "Then what is?" He didn't answer. I could hear noise behind him. Voices, music, movement. Life continuing around him while the one at home had already changed. "You're overreacting," he said finally. I almost smiled. Crying would be overreacting, I said. Arguing would be overreacting. Waiting for you to explain would be overreacting. A pause. Then, softer. "This is just a lot." "Yes," I said, "it is." That landed. Because it wasn't defensive. It wasn't emotional. It was just accurate. "You should have waited," he said. There it was. The sentence that explained everything. I leaned back against the counter. "You should have meant something else." Silence. Longer now. Then, "I'm coming back early." That didn't surprise me. Distance only works when control stays intact. He had lost that. "You can come back," I said. A pause. Then I added, "But there's nothing here." He came anyway. Of course he did. It was late when Maya's intercom buzzed. She looked at me from across the room. "Do you want me to get it?" I shook my head. "I'll handle it." I walked over and pressed the button. "Yes?" A pause. Then his voice. "I know you're there." No greeting. No hesitation. Just expectation. "What do you want?" I asked. "Can you come down?" "No." A breath. "Elena, just 5 minutes." 5 minutes. That's what people ask for when they think time can still fix something already finished. "I'm not coming down." "Then let me come up." "You can't." "Why not?" "Because you don't live here." Silence. Real silence this time. Not frustration. Not irritation. Recognition. "Then where am I supposed to go?" he asked. I looked at my hand resting against the wall. Steady. "You should have thought about that before you asked for other people." He said my name again. "Elena." But there was nothing behind it now. No control. No version left to adjust. Just someone standing outside something he thought would still be waiting. I released the intercom. The line went dead. A month later, everything was quieter. Not easier. Clearer. I had moved into my own place. Smaller, brighter, mine. No shared drawers, no overlapping spaces, no objects carrying two meanings at once. Just mine. I heard pieces of what happened after. How he tried to explain it. How he said it was a misunderstanding. How that worked for a while. Until someone asked what he had actually said. And then it didn't work anymore. Because the sentence never changed. We should see other people. Simple things don't bend. They don't soften because someone regrets them later. They stay exactly what they were. One night, sitting alone in my apartment, I thought about that moment again. Not the calls, not the boxes, the message. How easy it must have been to send from a distance. And how final it became the moment it landed. People think endings need long conversations. Closure. Explanation. But sometimes they arrive complete. And the only choice you have is whether to accept them. Or spend months trying to rewrite something that was already clear. I didn't rewrite it. I believed him. The first time. And that was the difference. Because when someone risks losing you that casually, they've already decided you're an option. And I don't stay where I'm optional. I stood up, turned off the lights one by one, and let the room fall quiet. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Just forward. Because the truth is, he didn't lose me when I left. He lost me the moment he thought I would stay.